Sword Art Online Fractured Daydream is out and it is incredibly fun. My intention was to wait for October 17 for the hard mode Skull Reaper raid to arrive to write my ultimate review, so you know, I'd have no stone unturned in that case, but the amount of questions I'm getting about the game and how excited people are, I decided to share a brief first impressions review that should at least allow you to have a decent enough understanding of the base game. I'll be very straightforward in this one and try to answer the questions that I have been asked the most, so it's going to be different from my usual first impressions videos. Background visual is a tier 2 co-op, the Ornal Scale stage with the Storm Griffin I ran with Heathcliff, as well as the tier 2 GGO boss raid SPC Trommel I ran with Shilika. The most common question I have been asked on my live streams, please come and watch them on the weekends, is this game worth $60? And to sneak in a little bit of a social commentary about gaming nowadays, it's kinda unfortunate to hear that question a lot more than simply, is this game fun? I think the game overall is great. Whether it is worth your $60, that is your own decision to make based on your own preferences. I'll try helping you make that decision for yourself, but keep in mind that not only is our perception incomplete regarding this game until October 17, but also this is a live service with multiplayer as its core aspect. Some of my complaints at the moment stem from the players not quite understanding how to approach certain types of content, which will get better over time as players familiarize themselves with content and realize that speedrunning and avoiding enemies to reach a boss does not actually save you time because you end up being underleveled significantly, especially in later tiers of content, which is exactly why I ended up with double the damage of everyone else here despite arriving at the tier 2 Storm Griffin boss after its first health bar was completely destroyed already. Kinda going off on a tangent there. On the flip side of that argument, one of the biggest challenges to overcome for live services is to avoid repetition and survive content droughts, which is in fact something I won't be able to judge even in my ultimate review, since 2 weeks from now won't lead to a content drought just yet. But without a doubt, this is the most fun I am having with a Sword Art Online game ever. And I'm saying that while being stressed out to rush through content a little bit so I can be ready for that day 1 hard mode boss raid on the 17th, an experience I am kinda all too familiar with thanks to my 10 years with Destiny. Not gonna go into spoilers here, but the story is a massive breath of fresh air thanks to leaving the 10 years of Gameverse behind. It is kind of a slow story, especially at the beginning. At the core of the story, there's the massive mystery of Galaxia system after all, with everyone's memories being iffy. But the main mystery does not overstay its welcome. The characters start grouping up relatively quickly, and one of the main contributors to even these slow portions feeling fresh is the unlikely or just generally interesting character combos that we spend these times with. It is incredible to have Kirito and Quinella as the main duo, with unsuspecting Lifa and the airhead Fuka joining into the combo as the first group you'll come across, with plenty more groups to follow, and the common theme here is being a fish out of water, which is covered greatly in each group, leading to these very fun circumstances. It's really amazing to see all of these characters being pushed out of their comfort zone, and the way they deal with their circumstances remains so in character for them in their portrayal, a praise I was not able to give the SAO Gameverse titles all that often. Alright, the gameplay. The gameplay, in my opinion, is slightly weak for the purposes of single player though. It is clearly designed for multiplayer at its core, so when you're not rolling around as a squad, which is what you're forced to in single player story mode, it leaves a lot to be desired. Being able to instantly switch between characters is a good bonus here, but the fact that you're on your own also cripples a couple characters' playstyles, especially the rangers who simply don't function well when you're the only person to grab aggro of the enemies properly. The collectibles scattered around the map and S-ranking the missions will probably give a bunch of players some extra enjoyment out of it, but otherwise, the simple go from point A to point B and defeat some enemies could have been slightly shorter all around, especially because while you do the exact same things in multiplayer, it just fundamentally works so much better because you're coordinating with other players and get a feel for the maps as well, allowing you to strive for efficiency there. In story mode, I just feel like I'm on an empty map spending 15 minutes alone by myself until I get to hear more about the story that I am actually excited about. I personally found single player to not be a problem when I have more AoE, area of effect style characters, mages specifically, but when I'm on single target characters, or god forbid I'm stuck with a slow moving tank and a ranger combo, these story stages can definitely overstay their welcome a bit or end up feeling too repetitive overall. Now, the multiplayer, that is essentially the exact same gameplay, which is why I'm very surprised that my extremely positive feelings since the closed beta 6 months ago, they still hold up. As I said, while the gameplay is simple, in multiplayer as you roll as a squad, everything just flows smoothly, and unlike single player, since you're working towards a clear objective all the time, working towards efficiency is fun. There's a chance that things may get repetitive if you're playing 10 plus hours a day, which you generally shouldn't do unless it's literally your job, but the upcoming Skull Reaper Tempest requirement being player rank 90, it kinda forces a lot of players to do this, and I know power leveling has become a huge thing in the past decade or so in these types of games, where players play to complete things like a machine rather than playing to have fun at their casual time. However, I strongly recommend giving the aid requests a try to break the monotony of playing the latest stage you unlock 20 times to be able to reach the next stage unlock. The aid requests are these neat mechanic the game has, where if you're idle in your lobby or doing something else, a pop-up will appear in the main screen with a system chime inviting you to join a lobby that has few players at a random map. Often these will be lobbies already in progress, meaning you can get a quick mission or boss clear if you join up, alongside a little boost for aiding other players. The join in progress aspect can be a little glitchy. There can be things that may scare you, like the map not loading properly. You may show up with 0 damage in leaderboards, you may seem like you get 0 XP at the end of the game, but based on my experience, these are all just visual bugs client side. Whenever I had these issues, I checked back after reaching the menu and I had my rewards and progress applied just fine, so don't let little glitches like that spook you. What I do hope is that they eventually add something like a playlist for specific levels. Destiny Strike playlist comes to my mind here, where you will basically queue up for a playlist at a given level, and it will be a random stage from a pool of stages rather than a fixed activity at a fixed level to pick from like we have right now. So for example, a player rank 30 playlist featuring Eelfang, Gleam Eyes and Storm Griffin, just to give it some variety. But until then, the aid requests are a great replacement for that, and you'll be helping other players while snagging some quick mission clears along the way. Actually, scratch that no playlists in the game thing, I leveled up a bit more, and apparently tier 3 co-op quests are somewhat like that. Not a full-on playlist going on here, but they feature 2 different maps each, which is basically a 50% chance. Very little bit of variety here, and I'm sure they'll pretty much become playlists, like proper playlists with multiple different maps as we get more content in the game. But yeah, overall I feel like the existing variety is fine at the moment, both in terms of co-op quests and boss raids, with the exception of the variety in general mobs that you encounter. They are a bit too samey across every single map. But anyways, we have 6 original co-op quests at the moment, while 3 of which feel very familiar: Jade Maze, Woodland of Vitality and Amber Ways. I'm looking at you. But since co-op quests are designed for 5 parties, there's even variety within these quests depending on which side of the map you spawn in or which mini-map you spawn in. As for boss raids, we have 5 different bosses, if I counted correctly, but sadly, you don't feel like it, which is exactly why I'm saying I think that's the case, because only the tier 3 raid is on a daily rotation, whereas tier 1 is currently fixed at Skull Reaper and tier 2 is currently fixed at SPT Trommel. Considering the rotation tier 3 unlocks at player rank 85, that's an extremely long way without any variety for players, and trust me, it is going to take long for the average player to get there if they don't complain about a lack of variety beforehand already. Lower tiers definitely will benefit from a randomizer or a playlist as well. Also, one thing I cannot praise enough is the variety of characters in Fractured Daydream. I already talked about this as far back as my closed beta impressions, that it felt great to have each character so unique, and that I was hoping the full game would continue to deliver on that with the entire cast. And I am glad that they have delivered indeed. We got 21 characters, 22nd coming soon with Strea, and they all have fully unique gameplay styles. Despite being categorized into classes based on, soft leniencies of the individual characters, the game also allows you to play just however you want, regardless of the class itself. I actually ended up playing as Heathcliff a lot, due to some other things I'm gonna mention in a bit, and what a damage dealer I made out of him despite being a tank. Just find a character you enjoy playing as and have fun. There's at least one character for everyone out there. Also, don't be discouraged if you switch to a new character and they do not yet feel powerful. A lot of power really comes from ranking up your character in the first place. Those base stat increases via higher tier equipment and character rank levels may not seem to be too significant, but trust me, they are. So if you enjoy a character's gameplay but they don't feel powerful enough, just stick with them a little bit longer. At first, I felt quite crippled as Heathcliff, for example, especially because as a tank, he moves slower than most other characters, and goddamn, he moves slow. But the moment I started reaching character rank 15, 20, his skills started hitting like a truck, and I consistently started topping the damage leaderboards. So, a little bit of patience with every character you try out. One main gripe at the moment for me is the weekly missions for the Battle Pass Special Trial. It's a free pass, I should mention, that is absolutely great, but the weekly missions are a tad bit too tedious, and the overall psychology around missions is that I feel compelled to do them even if I don't want to, and when it is telling me to play 15 boss raids with support class or whatever, it's just daunting and contributes to the feeling of repetitiveness. I really do hope we'll have a bit more variety in the second pass in a month when this one expires. That will switch to a little bit more skill-based challenges. I don't know. Get 50 perfect dodges, deal 1 million weak point damage, complete 10 tier 2 activities, things that do not bind your gameplay choices too tightly, things you can achieve regardless of which class or character you are using. And I'm sure their internal data would support things I'd be saying if this was an extensive Ultimate review. They can definitely see what people are doing with those enter free quest 7 times with this specific class, or achieve 50 combo with that specific class. Those are things that definitely show up in their activity and engagement data, and such missions will likely be reconsidered in the future for obvious reasons that I'm not gonna get into right now. They have a similar skill-based approach to dailies already, so they have better solutions in the game as is. I'm sure as time goes on and they expand on the game, they'll iterate on the past missions too into a better place. The pass itself is otherwise very good. Cosmetics are in the early ranks for easy access. Mathematically, there's more than enough XP available to complete it. About 50 to 70% more just with available daily and weekly missions at the time I calculated it before launch. It's just that the progress itself only feels too slow as a player, and that is absolutely a perception problem here, because as I said, in reality, the pass is mathematically perfectly fine and very much relaxed. I'd probably recommend adding some junk levels in the future, featuring things like coal, enhancement materials, and those kinds of stuff, and by adding those junk ranks, just decrease the amount of XP required per level so it's a little bit more exciting. An additional request from my side would be to assign more match XP to higher tier activities. Tier 1 activities can give 50 XP like right now, but tier 2 for example should give something like 75, tier 3 should give something like 100 XP. Right now every single activity is given 50 pass XP, which feels a little bit disappointing in later ranks, so to say. People say the cosmetics drop rate from activities is too low. I kinda agree, but I also don't feel an extreme urge to obsess about cosmetics at the moment this early in the game, and given the current rates, I don't think it's a problem in the long term. But as always, I do wish there was a safety net at the very least. The way RNG is, I know how painful it can get for the really unlucky people. They have their drop rate calculations and simulations internally for sure. Let's say hypothetically they expect a random player to receive a cosmetic on average in 25 activities. Just put a pity system there in place and simply guarantee a drop at 40 runs if a given player was unlucky enough to not receive anything by then. And this has been already longer than I expected. I really don't want to make a simple first impressions video any longer. I touched upon the gameplay, the characters, the story, additional game systems. I think generally this should suffice for first impressions. If you have additional questions, just ask them below in the comments and I'll reply to the best of my knowledge or abilities. But as I said, a full-on Ultimate review will be arriving after the 17th of October, at which point I'll have no stone unturned and will be able to share a more complete opinion with you. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much to Bandai Namco US and Germany for providing me with a review code. That was quite the combo effort from both sides, so I thank them both. I'll see you all in the next one, and make sure to stop by on my Fractured Daydream live streams on the weekends. I play with viewers and you get to watch me struggle with catching up with the chat. It is fun, I promise. But until then, stay cool.